All of those crazy rhythms you just heard were created using elementary level math. So grab your calculator, let's head to the Prog School. There's a lot of ways that you can build odd time signatures and complex rhythms, and I've covered a lot of really advanced ideas on this channel, but I've never talked about what I think is the easiest way to create odd rhythms, and that's addition and subtraction. This is pretty simple, and it's exactly what it sounds like. The add-subtract method for time signatures goes as follows. You can add or subtract any number of any subdivision type from any time signature. I'll start with 4/4. This is as basic as it gets. 4/4 has 4 quarter notes, and the simplest example of this method is just to add 1 quarter note to 4/4 to get a bar of 5/4. Here's a basic rock groove in 4/4. All I'm going to do here is to carry over that first beat to the 5th beat, and that's going to sound like this. I've made a bar of 5/4 without any complex theory, just simple addition. Now for some subtraction. Here's that 4/4 groove again, but now I'm going to subtract from it. If I subtract a quarter note, it's a bar of 3/4, which isn't really an odd time signature, so I'll subtract a different type of subdivision from 4/4. Remember in the formula for this method that I can add or subtract any type of subdivision. I'm going to subtract an 8th note from 4/4. 4/4 has 8 8th notes. If I subtract 1, that leaves 7 8th notes, or a bar of 7/8. For the groove, I'm just going to cut that last beat from a quarter note to an 8th note. Here's a couple more examples using 4/4. I'm going to add 3 8th notes to get a bar of 11/8. Subtracting 1 16th note for a bar of 15/16. And adding 5 16th notes to get a bar of 21/16. This concept is obviously very malleable and has essentially endless variations. To explore this in a real-world musical application, let's dive into my latest single, The Great Stereopticon.
The Great Stereopticon.
Before I get into this, go check out the full music video I made for The Great Stereopticon. I'm super pleased with how it turned out. Also, you can pick up the Great Stereopticon EP on my Bandcamp, links below. It's also going to be available on all of your major streaming services May 20th. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, like, comment, share, all of that. It really helps me to keep making this type of content for all of you. This song has 190 time signature changes, and almost all of these are achieved with simple addition and subtraction. And this starts right away in the a cappella intro.
A lone and naked man clings to dreams he wants so desperately to believe. A drone without a hive, a man with no home, kills, sleep, sexy, repeat, survive, but nothing matters anyway. Needs a story to end all of the futility. Beholder.
This originally started as 4 bars of 4/4, which would sound like this. With a 4-bar phrase like this, you could add or subtract from any of the measures, and that's what I'm doing here. I added a quarter note in the 2nd bar, and I subtracted an 8th note in the 4th bar, making the time signatures here 4/4, 5/4, 4/4, 7/8.
A lone and naked man clings to dreams he once so desperately to believe. A drone without a hive, a man with no home, kills, sleep, sexy.
One of the most common ways to see this add-subtract method used is in a longer phrase like this. Instead of adding and subtracting beats from every measure, you can just do it from any of the measures. So you could take 4 bars of 4/4, for example, and subtract 1 quarter note beat from just the last measure, making 3 bars of 4/4 and 1 bar of 3/4 for a total of 15 quarter note beats. This is a really great option to get a little bit of rhythmic variety and interest without going completely over the top with the time signature changes.
News today is what to do.
This blues scale based riff that happens at about 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the song takes this exact same approach. It's once again based on 4 bars of 4/4, but the second is cut a quarter note short and the fourth is cut an eighth note short, making this part 4/4, 3/4, 4/4, 7/8.
Here's what to do.
When this riff gets heavier, I have the cymbals playing half notes over the top of these time signature changes, an approach that's called overriding, which I did a whole masterclass lesson on. I also like this approach for a chorus or a big melodic section. In the chorus of this song, it alternates between 6/4 and 5/4. The 5/4 here is just a bar of 6/4 with a quarter note subtracted from it, and this doesn't feel particularly weird, and it keeps the chorus from sounding too generic. Just like it happens in the chorus, this addition and subtraction can work with any time signature, not just 4/4. The first verse of this song is mostly in 5/4, but at the very end of every 4-bar phrase, I add 3/8 notes to get a bar of 13/8.
My mind free from the disease of life. Sleep sexy, baby, survive. Of course, it might be a grand conspiracy.
The add-subtract method can also be done with compound meter. Compound meter refers to time signatures with beats that are divided into 3 instead of 2. I have a whole lesson on this subject if you want to dive a little bit deeper, but the most common compound meter is 12/8, which is usually felt as 4 groups of 3. In this heavy interlude section from the Great Stereopticon, I use 12/8 as the foundation and add and subtract from that. In the first measure, 1/8 note gets cut off, making a bar of 11/8. Kind of feels like a 12/8 bar with a shortened 4th beat. In the second measure, a dotted quarter note is subtracted, or what is an entire beat in the compound meter of 12/8, and that makes a bar of 9/8. The third measure subtracts a beat just like measure 2, making for a bar of 9/8, and then this run that's 10/16 notes long gets added to the end of that for a total of 14/8. In the fourth measure, it's just another bar of 9/8. The second half of this heavy interlude starts the same with a bar of 11/8 and then a bar of 9/8. The third measure here is similar to the 14/8 bar with 2 added 16th notes at the end for a total of 15/8. And the last bar is a bar of 12/8, the only time that 12/8 actually happens in this section. So here's this entire heavy interlude. This is more of an example of using this method to make something sound odd and confusing on purpose, whereas the approach in the verse and the chorus felt more natural because there was less adding and subtracting happening. And here I'm altering every single measure, which makes this really hard to latch onto. Another way to use this creates a more consistent odd time signature. In the second a cappella section of the song, it's 2 bars of 3/4, but 1/8 note gets added to the second measure, making for alternating bars of 3/4 and 7/8, which could also be viewed as 1 bar of 13/8.
Truth like a flame burning a light. Truth like a flame burning a light. Truth like a flame burning. You don't watch the news watches you. You don't watch the news, the news watches you. You don't watch the news, the news watches you. You don't watch the news, the news like a flame. You don't watch the news burning a light. Truth like a flame burning a light. Truth like a flame burning.
This is a pretty easy approach to creating a time signature like 13/8, which sounds very complex on its surface. One of the first times I came across something like this was the ending of Home by Dream Theater. There's a section that's in 1916, and that seemed absolutely insane to me until I realized it was just a bar of 4/4 with 3 added 16th notes on the end. So far, we've used this method a couple of different ways: to add a little bit of interest to a riff or a melodic section, using it to create more constantly changing time signatures, and also using it to make a more consistent odd time signature. There's one last way that I want to use this method here, and that's to go completely insane and over the top with it. Obviously there's a lot going on here, but all of the rhythmic complexity is coming from addition and subtraction. There's these ascending triplet runs that happen 3 different times. The first time it's 4 triplet figures followed by 7/8 notes. The second time it's 4 triplet figures followed by 3/8 notes. The last time it's 5 triplet figures followed by 4/8 notes. So you get the same idea, but each time it's morphed slightly by addition and subtraction. The main repeated figure in this crazy instrumental section is this. It's a group of fast 16th note sextuplets played in the lead instruments, alternating with low dotted 8th notes in the rhythm instruments, and this makes a bar of 5/8. That 5/8 bar gets added onto in different ways here, sometimes with 1/8 note to make a bar of 3/4. Also this bar of 1916, which adds a 7/16th note long run to the end of that 3/4 variation. And this bar of 15/8, which adds the second triplet run I talked about earlier to the 5/8 bar. These all get interrupted a couple of times by that blues riff that happened earlier. Then it moves to this diminished scale part, which alternates between 7/8 and 9/8, the 9/8 being the same as 7/8 with 2 added 8th notes. This could be written as 2 bars of 4/4 as well, but I'm really treating these as 7/8 and 9/8 with the parts that are actually being played. This section combines all of the approaches of this method that I've covered so far to create a completely chaotic and over-the-top Prog instrumental passage using only basic elementary level math. I think this is by far the easiest way to start down the path to understanding and using odd time signatures. Start with something that's comfortable like 4/4 and just alter it slightly with addition and subtraction, and this method has virtually endless possibilities and combinations, and it can be taken incredibly far, much further than even I went in the Great Stereopticon. Try this out for yourself, it's incredibly useful and it's a bread and butter type of method that I use in basically everything that I write these days. And you can pick up the Great Stereopticon on my Bandcamp, links below, and you can find the music video on my channel right now. And if you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, comment, share. Until next time, stay proggy.